Today on
Doomed!
the podcast heads to Brooklyn. On this episode of Doomed, we're talking with Isiah James, who is primarying Yvette Clarke in New York 9 in Brooklyn, New York City. We've had a slate of progressive challengers all throughout NYC on this week, and Isiah will be our first to let us know, how has campaigning changed in the borough of Brooklyn in the age of the coronavirus. And we'll talk about his race, his challenger, the incumbent he's challenging, I should say, and much, much more. Without further ado, let me pull up myself and Isiah on the feed here. Isiah James, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Now, I am so happy you could join me tonight. And, we have some stiff competition on the live streams because Donald Trump's back to rallying, baby. He's back in action. And apparently right now he is they're cheering him for drinking a cup of water with one hand. I don't know if you've known this whole thing where he's had trouble drinking water at his speeches with one hand, which it's just the things this guy talks about at his rally. He's mocking the media for making a whole thing about him walking down the ramp at the event when he was, I don't even know anymore. But my point is, thank you for joining me tonight.
Again, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we could, I'm glad you reached out and we could make this, come together. I know our schedules are insanely busy right now, so it's a pleasure to be here.
You were just telling me about, your day just today. So why don't you run through that for people? Well, actually, why don't you first let people know who you are, why you're running, and who you're running against.
Okay, so I don't know if you hear the noise outside, but there's a bunch of fireworks going on. It's going on like literally outside my front door. So I'm Isiah James. I'm 33 years old. I'm an organizer, activist. I'm a disabled veteran. I got 2 tours to Iraq and 1 tour to Afghanistan. Got blown up, got disabled, and got retired from the military. And then when I came home, I started to, work with other veterans who were having the same issues, that I was having, and seeing that, our local elected officials weren't really paying attention to them or anybody else in the community. So, in that activism work, I actually met with the woman that I'm running against over a year ago on some very salient issues around, housing and criminal justice. And it was like she was just intransigent. She didn't want to move. It was almost like she was insulted that somebody would actually question her or sit in her office and ask her to do more. And I could see that either she didn't know what was going on, which is a bad look for a congressional representative, or she just didn't give a damn what was going on, which is even worse look for a congressional representative. So I decided, I'm going to be the change that I want to see in my community. So that night I went home and I Googled how to run for Congress and literally watched a bunch of YouTube videos and figured it out. And like, all right, so I know how to get this thing started. And a year later, here I am sitting talking to you.
Hell yeah, man. I love to hear that. I mean, that's how it should be. Enough of these, career politicians who already know the whole process in terms of, who they have to curry favor from to get the, this endorsement or that endorsement, or just already have the paperwork ready to go because an aide prepared it for them or something like that. This is how it should be. People doing the work to and just running. Also, it shouldn't be... You shouldn't even have to watch multiple YouTube videos. It should literally be something so simple as a click of a button, fill in some information, and you should be able to run.
You would think so, but it's a very convoluted and complicated process. That you got to get stuff from the IRS and stuff from different banks and stuff from, it's a very convoluted process. It shouldn't be that way, but they make it so that the layperson will just be so disheartened with the whole process, they'll walk away from it.
Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the incumbent, Yvette Clarke? Because, viewers of this show know that this past week I've had a bunch of progressive candidates who are primarying incumbents this year in New York. And in fact, it's pretty much been a whole brand new Congress slate, and they've also endorsed you. And one thing that was interesting to me is that there are candidates like, for example, Gregory Meeks. I'm sorry, incumbents, for example, like Gregory Meeks, who's like a Democratic leader. People in most Democrats, I would say, know who Representative Meeks is. But then there's, for example, Representative Caroline Maloney in Manhattan, who I think most people wouldn't know who she is just by her name, because she doesn't really make herself, out there and known. And I think that's a problem. If you're a representative, people should know your name, because you should done enough for people to know your name. I mean, to me, no one politician can make change, but any one politician can use their bully pulpit to make things known to the public. So if people don't know who your name is, to me, that's a real problem. And I'm not all that familiar with Yvette Clarke's name. Well, I mean, I am, because I'm in this world, but I would say most, lay people aren't that familiar with her.
Well, that's the thing. That's what they do. So for Yvette Clarke, she hides under the radar because she doesn't get anything done. But she is a corporate politician like all the rest. She takes 97% of her donations from corporate PACs. Literally the worst of the worst. The Bank of Americas, the Black Rocks, the fossil fuel companies, all that stuff. And meanwhile, our community is one of the poorest communities in New York, in the country. And the same entities that she takes money from are responsible for the problems that we see here today. She takes money from the military-industrial complex. We have 8 recruiting stations in this district. She takes money from fossil fuel companies, and we have some of the highest levels of asthma and pollutants in our community. She just skates under the radar. You said it right. You don't know who she is. Or because you're in this world, but most people don't know who she is. And that's a problem. Everybody should know their congressional representative, because the congressional representative should be in the community every single chance they get, instead of showing up every 2 years, taking a photo op, and then leaving and going back to Washington to rub elbows with the lobbyists. That's the problem, not just with Yvette Clarke, but with Gregory Meeks, with most of the New York City delegation, with most of corporate Democrats in America, is the fact that corporate Democrats and Republicans take the same money from the same people. And those people don't care who's in office. They don't care if you have a D or an R behind your name. All they care is they have access to whoever's in office. And until we break this system, break this cycle, until we get a critical mass of actual everyday people-powered progressive campaigns to the federal government, we're never going to be able to change anything.
Now, what do you think? Yvette Clarke's. You just mentioned a ton of. But for people who aren't that familiar with her, what are her biggest issues in terms of what does she stand for? How has her voting record been? What are some of the great reasons to not support Representative Clarke?
Her voting record has been lock, stock, and 2 barrels with the same corporate Democrats. She just voted for the National Defense Authorization Act, which, gives the military hundreds of billions of more dollars. It gives Trump hundreds of billions more dollars. It gives surplus equipment to our police forces. She just voted for these things. So she says she's for Medicare for all. One, that term has been co-opted. What the hell does that even mean anymore?
Right.
We need to be clear. I'm for single-payer health care. She says she's for Medicare for all. Yet she takes hundreds of thousands of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry. She says she's for unions. Yet she takes thousands of dollars from union-busting companies. She's passed no legislation. She's done nothing. She's done absolutely nothing. It's the reason why our community is in the situation that it's in. Republicans, at least they bring pork barrel back to their districts. We don't even have that here. We have gentrification. We have skyrocketing rent prices. We have failing hospitals. We are over-policed. There are drugs in our community. People who built this community can't even afford to live in it anymore. And meanwhile, all she says is, give me another 2 years and it'll get better. That's the definition of insanity. We keep sending these people back to office and expect them to do something different. And we keep getting the same thing over and over again. And obviously what we've been doing the last 50, 60 years has not been working, as is evident by the situation that we're in today.
Right. I just want to read this comment actually from Alan B in the YouTube live stream chat. I proudly voted for Isiah James today. So there you go. I mean, people are voting. I want people to know that right now there is early voting in New York. You can't request an absentee ballot anymore, but if you have one, you can still send it in. And of course, June
Yes.
23rd is the New York primary. I will say this. Months ago when these decisions were made, people were really worried about going out and voting on primary day. And obviously, it's good that we've done things to alleviate how many people go out on primary day. But New York and New York City specifically, at this point in June, I would say people are taking this so seriously, the coronavirus so seriously, and taking it so well, that I would say if you can't early vote, if you don't have an absentee ballot, wear a mask, go out there with hand sanitizer, and I would say it's pretty safe probably to vote in New York City right now. Rest of the country, I don't know, but New York is handling this really well right now at this point in time. So I want to make sure everyone goes out there and votes no matter what. Don't worry about, everyone's taking it seriously in New York. With that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit about New York 9? What areas in Brooklyn are in that district?
Okay, so this district, believe it or not, it's wholly encompassed inside of Brooklyn. It's the only congressional district in New York City that is inside of, one borough. So we have all kinds. We have Park Slope, we have Sheepshead Bay, we have Midwood, we have Flatbush, we have East Flatbush, Prospect Leffert Gardens, from Atlantic Avenue by the Barclays Center all the way down to, the Atlantic Ocean. We have, it stretches, it's even a little bit of Brownsville is in the district. So it's a very eclectic district. We have a very big Hasidic population, a large Frum population. 50% of the community is African American. We have an Eastern European population. We have the affluent parts in Park Slope, and we have, the poor parts in Crown Heights and Flatbush, and the working parts of each Flatbush. You know what I mean? So it's a very, very, it's a microcosm of New York City in itself. It's just a collection of folks. And most of the folks in this district are hardworking people. But like I said earlier, they just can't get ahead. And it's not because they're not working. It's because the system is rigged against them. We have every day there's a new high rise going up, but there's also, when that goes up, it puts people out of their apartment. We see Wall Street keeps getting bailed out, but Americans are supposed to, and people in this country are supposed to get by on a $1,200 stimulus check. That's what I'm talking about when I say the system is rigged against them. And Yvette Clarke voted for that. It's time to have Democrats stand up for the principles we believe in. If Republicans can shut down the damn country because they didn't like the black guy in the White House, Democrats need to grow a damn spine and stand up for working people, poor people, black people, and marginalized communities. Because again, whatever we've been doing for the last 100 years has not been working.
How have the people in that district? Because from what you explained, it sounds like to me I can guess how the coronavirus has affected your district specifically. But let me hear it from you. As someone who's been on the ground and has seen it with your own eyes. How has the coronavirus affected the people in New York 9?
So, well, in New York 9, we literally have one of the highest death rates in the city, right here in central Brooklyn, because our community hospitals have been defunded. All of the folks in our community are those essential workers that now everybody praises. They are the ones who stocking the shelves, cleaning the hospitals, driving the buses, driving the trains, sweeping up the trash on the street. Those are the people. It's a working class community. And it's hit this community, it's ravaged this community really, really hard. Right around the corner from my apartment, there's literally like 3 COVID testing centers. They literally shut down the entire street, shut down the whole block. That's how bad it was all night long. All you heard was ambulances, all 2, 3, 4 in the morning, ambulances all night long. And literally, we were one of the hardest hit communities. That's not by accident. Manhattan didn't get as hard as us. That happened. Staten Island didn't get hard as hit as us. This happened on purpose because the resources were not funneled into this community because we're a community of color. We're a working class community. We're a poor community. So they're not going to funnel the resources in here. It took 2 weeks to get a COVID testing site in my district. 2 weeks. After we shut everything down. Me and my wife, we went around and tried to get tested. There was no sites anywhere, nowhere in central Brooklyn. Now they're here because everybody, the eyes of the city have now turned to central Brooklyn. Like, what the hell's going on over there? But this stuff we don't need leadership that's going to be reactionary. We need leadership that's going to be proactive to head these things off at the pass so we don't have, thousands of people dying, my neighbors in this district.
Right. I remember I live in an area of Queens, which is the hardest hit in Queens. And I remember that when the COVID testing sites started opening up, I remember our city councilman had to specifically request that Andrew Cuomo open up a COVID testing site in Flushing, Queens. And I remember thinking, You had to ask for that? That sounds like something that should be built in. Like the idea that the hardest hit areas in each borough weren't just automatically on their minds. And we know why, like you just said. These are working class, mostly minority communities, and they basically are an afterthought, regardless of the fact that during a pandemic, these were the people who got hit the hardest. It's mind boggling. It really is.
We see this all across the country. We've seen Congress not give a damn about poor people and working people and black people and marginalized communities for decades now. And it's not, if we're going to criticize the Republicans, which they rightfully deserve it, we have to get our house in order too, because Democrats take the same dirty money, and we're never going to be able to defeat this system if we take money from this system. The old maxim is true: you never bite the hand that feeds you. Nancy Pelosi thinks she can throw on a damn kente cloth and take a knee in halls of Congress, and that's supposed to erase, hundreds of years of pain for black people. That's not dealing with the problem. She's not defunding the police. She's not demilitarizing the police. She's not cutting the military budget. She's not putting more money in the hands of working people. All she's doing is something, it's not even symbolic. It's embarrassing, and it's insulting to think that my culture can be summed up by some damn kente cloth around the neck of this rich white woman kneeling in the house. That's what we're dealing with right now on our side as Democrats. And that's why I'm challenging my corporate Democrat, because she's no better. She votes lock, stock, and barrel with these people. And like I said, until we get a critical mass of progressives in Congress, we're never going to change this. Because if we keep voting for the lesser of two evils, guess what? You still get evil.
Right. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, honestly, the performative stuff, actually, to me, is just a slap in the face. Like, it's total. Like, I'd rather you just not even pretend. It really is just. It's so frustrating because you keep mentioning how it's not just Republicans, and you're absolutely right. But here's the thing. I feel like a lot of people on the left, we hear from more centrist Democrats or moderate Dems. They're always like, "Oh, you're always talking about the Democrats. Why don't you focus on the Republicans?" Well, the Republicans are shit. I mean, we know that. We say that. The left says that. Progressives say that. But that's where the problem is. You also know, I'm talking about those moderate Dems, you also know that Republicans are shit. We're talking about the Democrats now because you don't know the Dems are.
That message is akin to All Lives Matter. That's exactly what it is. If my house is on fire, I know my house is on fire. I need to put my house out before I go. I can see the house across the street on fire as well.
Right.
I can say, hey, that house is on fire. Somebody should deal with that. But I also need to put mine out too. I'm not going to let mine burn down and then go put that one out and put this one out. I'm not a Republican.
Right.
I can tell you they're crap. They suck. Everybody knows it. But if I'm running as a Democrat, if I'm on the Democratic side, then shouldn't I be willing to criticize my own side? I mean, those type of people, those are the All Lives Matter people. Right. Those are the people who are saying that's exactly what it is. That's what that argument is. You must get your own house in order first before you talk about anybody else's house. And like I said, we need to get rid of these damn corporate Democrats. I mean, I defy anybody to tell me something that the Democrats have done in the last 30 years that has actually helped working people.
Right.
I defy it. And I study this stuff up and down, left and right, in school, not just study on the internet, like sitting in class, graduate and undergraduate, studying this stuff. I defy somebody.
Right, and when they do give us something, it's like it's like just scraps just to keep us, just to satiate us temporarily. So because there's
don't give me Obamacare, which had the public option taken out. A public option is a terrible thing anyway, but it had the public option taken out. Don't give me DACA and have it be watered down. Listen, Nancy Pelosi, you remember, I think it was a summer ago, Nancy Pelosi and Schumer caved to Trump on the DACA thing. They could have stood up to him. They didn't do it. You know what I mean? So we've been talking about these things for 100 years in this country. Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, they had the House, the Senate, and the White House. Nancy Pelosi could have said, Mr. President, I'm giving you a single-payer health care bill right now. She didn't do it. She could have said, Mr. President, I'm giving you a bill to legalize marijuana. I'm giving you a bill to close for-profit prisons. I'm giving you a bill to cut our military-industrial complex. I'm giving you a bill that's going to fund our schools and increase our education budget. None of that happened.
Right.
None of it happened. So don't tell me you care about me. You know what I mean? If you cared about black people, we had Black History Month. She didn't wear no kente cloth then. But I mean, that was like Karen meets Wakanda. That whole situation. It was just I saw it. I saw it on Twitter. I was like, what is this? I showed my wife. I didn't even know what to say.
I mean, you put it way better than I could. I mean, it's
Literally like
amazing.
Karen to Wakanda. That's what that
Right,
was.
right. Now, let's talk about because you're running and other progressives who are running right now are honestly doing
Nope.
something that I think.
I'm the only progressive in my race.
Oh no. I mean, other progressives I've talked to on this show, not in your district.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, don't worry. I know. That's why you're on this show and they aren't.
yeah.
But we'll get to those other people as well because I do want to talk to you about them too. The other progressives I had on this show who are running in other districts and yourself, you guys are running during. Honestly, I think this is going to be something that no one else is going to experience at least for another 100 years. You guys are running during a global pandemic that really the world hasn't seen since the Spanish flu in 1918 or whenever it was. And we've spoken about how your constituents are dealing with it. Now I want to know, how has it affected your campaign? Because I can imagine you had to completely restructure. Because the left, when the left runs an insurgent primary campaign, it's completely structured around on the boots on the ground, grassroots organizing. So I would love to hear how you had to switch things around and what the coronavirus did to your race.
Well, good thing, we have a lot of volunteers who are very digitally savvy. Yeah, I mean, all the videos and, the town halls and the Zoom calls and all that stuff. And I'm not an old man, I'm 33, but I'm not, that tech savvy. But we really had to restructure everything. I mean, we I'll give you an example. To get on the ballot, you have to collect a certain number of signatures.
All right.
We got on the ballot in 5 days. Even with this shortened period. That's how hard our volunteers were going. We had 200 volunteers out in the community every single day, just getting signatures, knocking on doors, talking, getting people, amped up about the campaign. And I was out there literally every day with a different group every day. And people are hungry for change. And then coronavirus just put a stop to all of that. So we had to quickly switch to everything online. We had to switch to digital fundraising, digital town halls, digital debates, digital meet and greets, text banking, phone banking, all that stuff. We had to start that a lot earlier than we normally would. You usually start text banking and phone banking the last, 2-3 weeks of a campaign. We started this stuff months ago because we couldn't get out, and the reception has been absolutely amazing. My volunteers, I can't thank them enough. We've run through 100,000, individual different numbers in this district calling people, both calling and texting. And we just acquired 60,000 more numbers that we're doing one final push. We have a giant text banking, phone banking thing tomorrow. It's a bunch of other groups from around the city, a bunch of progressive groups, and my campaign, we're all getting together. And we're going to do one big, massive phone bank and text bank tomorrow. And my volunteers are going out, and the ones who are comfortable going out. We're not making anybody go out. They're slipping, literature under people's doors. They're postering, they're flyering. They're rocking it. But we had to switch everything, you know what I mean? And my strongest suit is talking to people. I'm not a huge fundraiser. We raised $40,000 this campaign so far, and I am ecstatic about that. Dude, $40,000 for a grassroots campaign? I'll take it any day of the week. Other people have raised more than us because they take corporate money. I mean, It's easy. If I took corporate money, think about it. If I went and got, a max donation from a Wall Street guy, which is $2,800, and he bundled, 10 more donations from his friends, that's $28,000. Right now, I'd have $70,000 raised. But we don't do that kind of stuff because I have integrity. So it made the campaign harder. But guess what? When I went to the Army, my drill sergeant told me something on the second day after he smoked the hell out of us, made us do push-ups and made us all puke. He said, listen, nobody was ever born on the top of Mount Everest. You get there one step at a time. So the campaign, it got drastically harder, but I know what I'm fighting for. I know that the greatest tree you can plant is one whose shade you'll never sit in. I'm sitting here right now where I am today, and you are where you are today because somebody sacrificed for us before we were even born, before they even knew us. So it's about fighting for the people right now, but it's also about fighting for unborn generations to come. So we don't have to have any more black kids or kids of color or women or trans folks have to live in a society that, disrespects them and kills them and doesn't value their humanity.
Right, right. And let's talk about, also another thing that's going on right now. Well, first I want to say there, we covered coronavirus, and then you mentioned how much you raised, which the second thing we're dealing with on top of coronavirus is a huge economic crisis. Tens of millions of people in this country are unemployed. So the fact that you've been able to raise tens of thousands of dollars amid everything without being able to do traditional, on the, street talking to people face to face campaigning with this economic crisis in the background is very impressive. And then a third thing that's going on, because we really are facing a multitude of events right now, is this mass uprising where people are, it really is revolutionary. It feels like this moment is certainly different. People are saying enough is enough, and there are protests around the world, really, against systemic racism and police brutality. And one of the really, one of the ground zero areas, there's many all over the country, but one of the main protest sites has been part of your district in Brooklyn. So how has running while this is all going on with these protests, how is that really, it has to feel like a real, a boost in a way in terms of, because you have all these people who are on the your side of the politics, taking action, progressives, people on the left out there on the street, and it feels like, I'm sure it feels like, we could do this. Look at all these people out there.
The hardest thing, in politics is getting people to actually care, to see outside of themselves, to fight for someone they don't know. And they can do that. They can channel all that collective anger and rage and voice. And I said rage on purpose because you should be enraged at what the hell is going on. The hardest thing is to get them to channel that into the ballot box, because for so long people have been disenfranchised, they're disenchanted, they think the process is disingenuous, they think their vote doesn't matter and it doesn't count. So the hardest thing for progressives like me is to get them to the ballot box. But seeing what's happening, this stuff is literally happening right down the street from my campaign office. Like literally, I live right down the street from the Barclays Center where the protest organically started. The one we just did, right here in Prospect Park.
Right.
I live free from that. The one that happened, right on Parkside in Brooklyn, it's literally a block away from my campaign office. And they march right down my street every day, literally the street that I live on. So you said that people are finally saying enough is enough. Other people besides black folks are finally saying enough is enough. Because black people for 400 years have been saying that this was wrong. The slave that jumped overboard on the Atlantic Passage, they knew it was wrong. They said they had enough, 2 weeks into the damn journey. So no longer are black people, talking in our echo chamber of pain. Now the world is seeing it because of such an egregious, heinous, dastardly, I don't know enough adjective to describe it, way that a man was killed so callously. But what we saw wasn't just, one police officer with his neck on his knee on the neck of one black man. What you saw was literally a manifestation of the state with their knees on the necks of black people and people of color all over this country and marginalized groups all over this country. You saw that man begging and pleading, and that's what people have been doing for decades and generations. Martin Luther King said, we want to be treated as human. Malcolm said, we want to be treated as human. Fannie Lou Hamer said she was sick and tired of sick and tired. Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman. I can go on and on and on and on and on about all these people, these black people who have told the state. Frederick Douglass said, what is the 4th of July to a slave? What is true freedom and justice in America unless everybody has it? You know what I mean? So we purport to be a nation where all are born equal, but right now, in our founding document, slavery is still there. Think about that. The Constitution has been amended dozens of times. They never took out slavery. It is still there. The three-fifths clause is still there in the Constitution. They never took it out. So what does that tell you about America? America is not going to change on her own. She's not going to change by us just yelling. We have to take that action and that anger and channel it into the ballot box, no matter what, because that's how we get change, is we elect people and put people into office that will actually fight for that change.
Right, right. And speaking on that, and we were talking earlier about, the performativeness from some of our elected officials, where they're doing physical solidarity movements, but I mean they are elected officials. They could actually change laws and make things happen and pass policy, which they aren't. Yesterday I feel like Juneteenth. It was something where I feel like more people, like you said, certain people were waking up, but black people have always known about this day. You see online all of a sudden, white celebrities going, "Oh, I didn't even know this was a thing." I mean, I knew it was a thing, but I mean, I'm not even. It seems like if I had time on my hands because I had money and was a rich white celebrity, I would have done a little research every now and then and found out that something like this was a thing. But there was something else though that really struck me though, and it was these corporations all coming out now and saying we're going to now make June 19th a holiday. And to me the most stunning one was Uber saying how their employees would now have off June 19th. And then the disconnect there is that, well, their drivers aren't employees, and most of their drivers are working people of color. So they will not have off June 19th, but the white executives who who are in that tech company Uber will have off that date. And it was just amazing to me, at the same time as so many people are waking up to it, there's also again this performativeness from the people in power, whether it be in government or in major corporations, and how they're just trying to, save face for the moment.
So let's unpack a few things. One, corporations don't give a damn about people. They're corporations. If they gave a damn, they wouldn't be corporations. They would be nonprofits. They're not. They're corporations. That's number one. Number two, don't tell me what you believe. Show me what you do, and I'll tell you what you believe. Oh, Uber, he wants to give people off for June 19th. How about you let them unionize? How about you give them benefits? How about you give them, more pay? How about you give them worker co-ops where they own part of the company? Oh, we're not going to do that, but we'll give you this day off that, like you said, most of the workers of color won't take off because they're hardworking people. They need the money any damn way. All these corporations, Target and whatever, and Walmart and everybody's oh, we care about you. No, you don't. You do not care about us. You're just doing what you think is expedient to black people of color buying your product. That's all you're doing. If you actually cared, Walmart, you would pay your workers a living wage. If you actually gave a damn, Amazon, you would allow them to unionize. But you're not doing any of that. You're not doing any of the metrics that actually mean anything. You're doing symbolic gestures. Symbolic gestures don't mean any damn thing. It's like, you know what? The slave master used to let the slave have a day off on his birthday. They would all sing and dance, and they would, the slave master would give them a chicken and let them have the whole chicken. And let them, do it when they got married. Let them jump the broom. The next day, you take your ass back to the field and you pick cotton under the threat of the whip. It's symbolic. It doesn't mean anything. Don't tell me what you believe. Show me what you do, and I'll tell you what you believe. And they ain't showing me a damn thing.
Right. Now let's talk about the we mentioned them earlier. Let's talk about the other challengers in your race. Now you are the only progressive running. And there are other people running though who they believe they're progressive, and I'd like you to give you the opportunity to anyone who's listening who is in New York 9 who might be trying to figure out who they're voting for, still. Which I mean at this point I don't know how, but let's say that's one of the people listening. Tell them a little bit about what makes you different from those other challengers who are taking on Yvette Clarke.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the first thing that makes me different is integrity. I have integrity, and it's been clear to me since I started running for office. People are willing to sell out their integrity for a damn donation, and that's not what I'm willing to do. If you're willing to sell out your community for a $2,800 donation, that's between you and your God. But I would never do that. So I don't take money from the PBA, Police Benevolent Association, the police union lobbyists. I don't take money from real estate executives, Wall Street executives, pharmaceutical executives, the military industrial complex, BlackRock, all these giant banks, any of that money. Every single one of my opponents, Yvette Clarke, Adam Bunkadeko, Heindeutsch, all of them take that damn corporate money. So again, voting for the lesser of two evils is still going to get you evil. If you do not break this cycle right now, we're never going to change, because working people and poor people and black people and trans people and LGBTQ people have been talking about this forever. We've been saying that we want equality, we want rights, we want dignity, we want equity and fair pay, and we haven't got it. Our own side isn't listening. Even right now, with all the voices in the street, they're still not listening because they're not beholden to you. They're beholden to the big and the rich and the powerful. That's why nothing is getting done. That's what makes me different from everybody else in this race, because I believe in the hard right over the easy wrong. I'll tell you a story. When I first got in this race, a guy approached me and said there's some guys who wanted to open up a casino in Manhattan, and they'd be willing to bundle and fund my campaign if I would get on board with them. I said, hell no. That's not the type of person I am. He asked me, would I take charter school money? I said no. He's like, will you take Wall Street money? I said no. He's like, you're going to make this extremely difficult for yourself. I said, I understand that, but at the end of the day, I have to look myself in the mirror. I have to be able to walk out in my community and then look at me and know, Isiah fought for us to the end, no matter what the outcome, and he didn't sell us out. So that's the type of person that they would want in office, who wouldn't sell them out, because we've been sold out for so long. And a lot of black politicians, Yvette Clarke included, they use their blackness as a buttress to any criticism. But like my grandmother always said, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And this district is Shirley Chisholm's district. Her motto was unbought and unbossed. She said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Folks in my community can't even afford a damn folding chair. We have no seats at the table because the corporations are already there. You know what I mean? So we're on the precipice of turning a corner in this country. We have to decide which way we're going to go. Are we going to go into full-on fascism and the plutocracy? Are we going to actually turn this big-ass ship that is America around and start making every single policy center around poor people and working people and marginalized communities and black people? Are we going to finally do that? Because America is a big ship, just like the Titanic. And you see the iceberg ahead. The iceberg is income inequality. It's racial injustice. It's housing insecurity, food insecurity. It's climate change. It's all these things. It's staring us dead in the face. So we have to start turning now before it's too late, because every great empire before us has fallen. The Romans, the Assyrians, the Greeks, the Turks, the Ottomans, they've all fallen because they did not heed the word of the people. They did not deal with what they needed to deal with internally, and they spread themselves too thin militarily. We are headlong down that road right now.
Right. Right. And you know what? I want to take a little bit of, because we were discussing earlier before we went live, basically how, this is going to be an election unlike any other because of all the reasons we just discussed. And it's going to be really hard, anyone who's saying that, they know how it's going to turn out, you can't. It's just going to be one of those elections. But last time, one of the other challengers in your race, one of your other opponents, Adam Bunkadeko, he did run against Yvette Clarke previously, and he came very close to beating her. So I wanna focus on him, actually, because I know in terms of anyone who wants Isiah James to win, I think they can't just look at Yvette Clarke as one of the main person, the main obstacle. It's also Adam. So I do want to focus a little bit just on him in terms of what specifically. You mentioned a few things in general, but I want to make it clear specifically to him what he's done that would make you the better choice over him. I know you mentioned a few, but I want listeners to really know that who the things you mentioned are attached to.
So he's lied. He's he has 100% lied about who he is and what he does. He purports himself to be this grassroots organizer, but he worked at the Empire State Development Corporation, which anybody knows is the business arm for New York State. Those are the people who come in and upzone communities, kick everybody out, and build giant condos. That's number one. Number two, he's a Wall Street guy. He worked for Lazard, one of the biggest banks in the world. And now all of a sudden he's found his grassroots calling. God bless him for that. Number two, he takes that dirty money. He's just running to be a younger version of Yvette Clarke. And Yvette Clarke, at least she admits to taking the dirty money. She makes no qualms about it. She says she's not going to stop taking it. So I'll give her that one. At least she's honest about that. But the fact that this brother is lying about it, and that's what's so dangerous. If you're willing to lie to my face, remember, he's running to represent me. I'm running to represent him. So he's running to represent me. And as his potential constituent, if he were to win, he's lying directly to my face about who he is and what he does. One, I don't take that lightly. And two, you don't value my intelligence and you don't value the hard work that people in this community are doing if you're willing to lie your way to the top. I can't listen. Where I come from, man, your word is truly your bond. You know, if I'm on the mountain in Afghanistan or something, and my battle buddy next to me needs to go to sleep, I say, hey, brother, go to sleep. I got your back. He's literally putting his life in my hands, literally, and I'm doing the same to him. So my word, it really is my bond, and I don't take that lightly. So the fact that people can just lie so callously and just sell out the community so callously, it's a bad sign of what they'll do if they actually get to power. If you're willing to lie your way to power, lo and behold, what the hell you'll do if you actually get a vote.
Right. And have you had a debate with? Were you able to get a debate? How did?
Got,
Okay, great. All right. And Yvette Clarke was in them.
She was all but one.
Okay, good. Because I've spoken to some of these other brand new Congress endorsed candidates, and some of them are having they still haven't had a single debate with who they're challenging. So glad to see that happen.
Talking about Sean and New York 5. I know Sean personally. I called Sean today. I called him literally today.
Right.
So I don't know if Meeks won't, debate him because Gregory Meeks he's another one of the terrible ones. You know what I mean? So we've had 5 debates, and folks can go out there. We've had a New York 1 debate, a News 12 debate, Shirley Chisholm debate, Sunrise Movement debate, and a not Newsmax, but Ben Max from, I can't remember the news organization. But if you look up the debates, they're there, and folks will be. I would highly encourage people to look them up.
Right, I want to make sure everyone knows that there's debates. Also, Mel, who's taking on Grace Ming in New York 6, he also hasn't gotten in a debate. I mean, it is stunning. Like that. I mean, Yvette Clarke did show up for debates, so I guess I could give her that one thing. But it seems like the bare minimum as an elected official you can do is show up for these debates. Like to not even be able to do that is just.
Where were they? I mean, we were all on quarantine. They only came back in session twice.
Right.
Where were they? How can you not show up for debate? Oh, you're supposed to live in your district. So either you live in the district and you just didn't come out for the debate, or you don't live in this district or have a district, you're in Washington somewhere. They went back to Washington twice to vote. We've been on quarantine for 4 months, locked down for 4 months. Where the hell these people been at?
Right. Well, hell, I mean, this year you don't even need to be in your district. Exactly. You could be on a beach in California if you want and show up for the debate this year.
Exactly. So there's no excuse.
So I've spoken to this is one question I really enjoyed asking all the candidates because there's always some sort of insane answer. And my favorite example I've gotten so far is from Lauren Ashcraft, who's primarying Caroline Maloney in Manhattan, and it is what has been the most ridiculous way. That, in your case, being that there's multiple challengers, how the incumbent's campaign or one of your other opponent's campaigns have tried to go after you in your campaign. With Ashcraft's example, they go after her because they say she has ties to the financial sector. And her ties to the financial sector was that in her career, for one single year, she worked as a project manager for a bank. Ooh, I mean, they make it sound like she's got ties to Jamie Dimon or something. Like she's in there in the, sitting down with him talking, how they can screw people out of their mortgages and foreclose on homes, but that's, so what have you been taking in this campaign as the progressive challenger?
Nothing. They haven't come out.
Wow.
Listen, they know for a fact they've gone after each other. If you come for me, you better pack a lunch because it's gonna be an all day affair. I'm telling you that right now, and they know that. The way I'm talking to you, if folks go out there and watch those debates, they know don't come for Isaiah James unless he sends for you, because I'm not the one to play with. I'm a staunch advocate for folks in my community. I'm fighting like hell to win this race, so they know. They have none of them. One, well, in a debate, Adam Buckadecko said I was a liar and I've done nothing. Literally, he said, he's like, you have done nothing in public service. And I'm like, dude, while you were we're the same age. So we're both the same. I think I'm a year older than him. While he was, partying in undergrad, at 18 years old, I was in Baghdad. While he was in his junior year of college in undergrad, I was on my second tour in Mosul, Iraq. While he was at Harvard Business School, I was in the mountains of Afghanistan. And while he was working at the Zard, I was being a community organizer and working with veterans. So he said I had done nothing, but my record speaks for itself.
Right. It's also a bizarre line of attack for a challenger. Even though he was going after you with it, that's a bizarre line of attack for a challenger, because if we're going by amount, just raw time spent in public service, I mean, you're not beating the incumbent. If that's if that's the she's been how long has Yvette Clarke been a representative?
14 years this election.
I mean, geez. First of all, I remember when Sean told me that Gregory Meeks was something like 20-something years or something like that, and I was just like, Christ, But like, it's just a bizarre thing to go by. Even if you didn't have any public service record, the fact that you've done the work and you are a rounded individual with ideological beliefs and you're ready to get things done and you've shown that you're a fighter for the causes that you believe in, a challenger, in my opinion, shouldn't really. I mean, what if you just woke up to the realities of, wow, I can do this and actually defeat the people who failed me? Just really bizarre for a challenger to argue that against you. Someone wasn't thinking that attack through, were they?
Listen, I've been shot. I've been blown up. 8 years, 2 months, 29 days I spent in the military. I'm 90% disabled. What is somebody going to say to me that I've not heard before? Right. What is somebody going to do to me that has already not been done to me? Not only that, I'm a black man. I'm a 6'8" black man in America. I'm not scared of anything. You know what I mean? So I'm not worried about being attacked.
I love that. So let me ask you this, actually, because you would be the expert in this area, and especially as someone who's coming from the left, who has this experience in the military. I would love for you to go a little bit into, what you think, Congressman Isiah James gets, you go to Washington, you have this background in the military, you have this, this leftist ideology. What is something that you would advocate for specifically within the military-industrial complex to change that with coming from your political background?
Good question. So first, we need to cut our defense budget. Our defense budget right now, with all the contractors and subcontractors included, is around $790 billion a year. Our Department of Education's budget is around $70 billion a year. So literally, we're spending 11 times more on bombs and bullets than we are on books and backpacks. So we need to cut it, and we need to cut it to pre-9/11 levels. We need to close all these bases that we have around. We literally are an empire around the world. We need to bring our troops home. So we can use that money to fund education. Also, we need to audit the damn Pentagon, because trillions of dollars have gone up in smoke. And listen, if you think the pharmaceutical industry is big, which it is, the banking industry is big, which it is, the military industrial complex is massive. 55% of discretionary spending in this country is on our defense budget. Over half our discretionary spending goes towards the military. That's how big it is. We need to cut it to pre-9/11 levels. And it's different for somebody else. I'm going to show you something real quick, babe. Grab my uniform out of the closet, please. I'm going to show you something. It's like when AOC, when she tries to talk about the military budget, they can say, well, what does she know? She's just a bartender from Queens. When I try to talk about the military budget, it's a different story. You see what I'm saying?
I love that, yeah.
and got the T-shirt to prove it. I got enough damn medals on my chest like a Christmas tree. You have awards from the president and everything. And I've been inside that Leviathan, and I understand how corrupt it is. And I understand that we are literally shooting our resources out the barrel of a gun to kill poor black people around the world and poor brown people around the world. I didn't join the military as a step up. I joined the military as a way out. I have friends right now who are dead, who are in jail doing life bids right now for selling dope because they had no other avenues of escape.
Right.
And it's like that for a lot of people. The military recruits from poor neighborhoods. In our neighborhood, there are 8 recruiting stations. You don't see them in Chelsea. You don't see them in the Upper East Side, in the Upper West Side.
Right.
But they're in Brownsville. They're in Bed-Stuy. They're in Flatbush. They're in East New York. They're everywhere over here. They're up in the Bronx. So we need to stop that. I am on the board of this veterans group called the Black Veterans Project, which we are looking at the systematic racism that's inside the military that has gone unchecked for years, and bringing America's story of her black military members to the forefront. A lot of people don't know the first person to die in defense of this country in the Revolutionary War was a black man. His name was Crispus Attucks. He was the first person killed. People don't know about the Harlem Hellfighters. People don't know about the Buffalo Soldiers. I say that to say this. Our military budget is grossly bloated. My opponent, Yvette Clarke, votes for that damn budget every single year. We are close to spending $1 trillion on the military. Imagine what we could do if we had that budget allocated towards education,
right,
or housing, or healthcare, so we can have single-payer healthcare. You know what? Take all that off the table. Imagine if we devoted those resources to cancer research, where we would be in this country. So when I get there, I'm going straight after the military budget. And like I said, what are they going to say to me or do to me that hasn't already been done?
I mean, to me, those 5 minutes you just spent right there, if I was questioning who I was voting for, you would have, I'm sold, but you got me. That's it. I mean, if I lived in your district, that would have been my vote for sure. I mean,
and when I get to Congress, I'll wear my uniform on the floor of the House. And then they'll be like, well, what do you know about the military? I'm like, a little bit of something. A little bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and in that, let's stick with this actually, because speaking of the military, the militarization of our police force. I mean, we're seeing it out on the streets, especially in your district right now with what's going on with the protests. I'd love to, and we've already spoken a bit about the protests, but I'd love for you to specifically go a little bit into, your feelings on, the police having this. Well, first of all, the police having this sort of budget, and then also them getting this sort of equipment for, the whole idea is that a police officer, the idea of a police, this has never been the fact, but the idea of the police is, you have these people in your community who get to know everyone and can't make sure everyone's, protect and serve. But of course, we know how it really works. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the militarization of the police.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff you said there, so let's unpack it. First off, if you know where we get policing started in England, the communities I used to live in were called shires, and the people who were, to keep the peace for the king, working for the king, the overseer, were called reeves. And that's where our word sheriff come from, shire reeve. That's where sheriff come from. That's where policing started, over there. Policing in America started from runaway slaves being caught by people who were paid by their masters to bring back property. They were literally slave catchers. Those were the first police in America to protect property. That's number 2. Number 3, if you look at the police force, there's something called the 1033 program that allows them to be able to buy surplus military equipment. There's nothing wrong with this equipment. I've seen this equipment. When they say surplus, that means a company got a new juicy contract, so they just built something new. That's why we have the F-22 Raptor, never going to see combat. We don't even need it. That was $200 billion contract. And all those F-15s, we just sell them to another country. So that 1033 program allows the NYPD to buy literally military equipment. I could go to those vehicles right now, open the door, flip all the damn switches, and drive it away, because I know exactly the RG-33, the MRAPs, the Haga, all those same vehicles are ones I used in combat. a few years ago. We have a standing Army, we have a standing Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, and Coast Guard. The NYPD aren't repelling against any attack. This is not Red Dawn. Why the hell do they need military equipment? That military equipment is to keep you and I in check. It is not to repel against some foreign nation attacking us. So that should tell you right then and there that the police are not here to be our friends. They're here to keep us in check. So we need to end that 1033 program. We need to cut off all federal funds for the police departments. The NYPD's budget is more than we spend on homelessness, more than we spend on youth training programs, on diversionary programs. The NYPD's budget is $6 billion damn dollars. Think about that. $6 billion. Why? If de Blasio touts that crime is the lowest it's ever been, so why are we putting more police on it? He hired 500 new cops last summer to police stations in black and brown communities at the cost of $250 million. But he wants to stand up and say he has a black wife and a black son and a black daughter. Then act like it. Don't put police in our neighborhood. You're going right now in Crown Heights and East Flatbush. There are police towers that, go up 30 feet in the air. That's siege tactics. That's literally a guard tower. I've sat in guard towers in Iraq. That's a damn guard tower. You're under constant surveillance. And when I talk about police, we also need to understand it's not just the NYPD 911. I'm talking about ICE, which is a police force.
Right.
I'm talking about the Department of Homeland Security, which is a police force. I'm talking about all these alphabet agencies out here that are police forces of the state that are used in quasi, situations to suppress people and round people up and throw people in jail. We need to end this stuff. We literally live in a police state. And I think it's evident seeing now. The NYPD came out to peaceful protests and showed the world why people are protesting. They made our case for us. When I was at the protest, they made our case for us of why we should defund the damn police and use that money for more mental health counselors, for more mental health services in this country, for more after-school programs, diversionary programs, for more drug treatment programs. They made the case for us. So now it's time to put people in office who are going to fight to make sure they don't have the damn money to terrorize black and brown communities anymore.
Right. I've said this before in the show just this week, in terms of de Blasio. If he is we know now, but if he was the progressive that he said he was, and he actually came in to change things in New York the way he claimed he would, and the system, for example, let's take the police, the NYPD was so entrenched in the system that even the mayor of New York couldn't get the reforms he claims he wanted or change the force in the way he claims he could. He still has that power, which I mentioned earlier, that individual politicians always have. That's why I think this conversation we're having is so important, because I think you're really showing people you have this power. You're there to do that. You have the power of the bully pulpit. And he could, if Bill de Blasio couldn't do what he wanted to do, even as the mayor of New York, he still has that power to go out there and say, the NYPD, the police unions, they hold so much power over the city that even I, the mayor, couldn't do what I set out to do. And I want you all to know this. And I'm going to tell you what happened and how this ended up this way and what we can do, hopefully, to change that, because I can't do it alone, even as the mayor. But I mean, the guy, his daughter got arrested at a protest. And I'm sorry, I don't know if anyone could believe this, but I truly do not believe that was a coincidence. His daughter was targeted. Someone there in the NYPD saw the mayor's daughter and said, we're going to arrest her for sure. But I mean, the fact that he doesn't do this is just baffling to me. And it really goes to show just how important having someone in there, just with even the guts to say these things, it means so much, really, to have an elected official like that.
Let's unpack that again. So what you're saying is a situation that does not exist. New York City has something called a strong mayoral system, where the mayor actually has a lot of power. For folks out there who want to know, it's a book called The Politics of New York City. Read it. I studied it when I was a freshman in college. The New York mayoral system is very strong. That's why the hell did it take... Listen, we saw Eric Garner get choked to death. Daniel Pantaleo drew a public salary for 5 years. Do you know how infuriating that is as a black taxpayer to know that my money is going to a man that murdered a large black man who looks just like me? Mayor Bill de Blasio knows the chokehold is outlawed. He could have fired Daniel Pantaleo right then
Right.
and there. You know what? If not, he could have fired him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He could have stood up to the police union right then and there. He can fire the police chief whenever the hell he wants. He is the mayor of New York City, the richest city in the United States of America, the most powerful city in the United States of America. He could have done these things. So for anybody out there who thinks he couldn't, let me disabuse you of that notion right now. He was lying to all of us. That's called placating, patting us on our back, saying you're on our side, but when you go behind those doors in those smoke-filled rooms, you don't give a damn. He's lying. He could have done that stuff.
Right.
A case in point, he put the curfew in effect. He didn't have to do that.
Right.
He could have not done that. He put more cops on the street. He signed the executive order that put them out there. He didn't have to do that. The same way he said, okay, I'm ending the curfew. See how strong the mayoral system is? The fact that he said, you know what, we need 500 new cops to police subways. He did that.
Right.
So if he can do it, he can undo it. So that tells you he's not on our side. He's lying to us.
Right. Right. I guess what I was getting at was, with bringing up his daughter is I do think there is. I mean, I agree with you totally that what he wants to do is not what he said he wants to do. But at the same time, I do think there is something about the police across the country. But I think just look at how the NYPD, the police unions, the Benevolent Association, when they get out there in front of their mic, it's very like mafioso-esque, very mafia-esque. And, I do wonder if some of these, politicians who do speak out against the police worry about their safety and their family's safety, and especially with, Bill de Blasio, with his daughter and his son, But again, I agree with you. If he wanted to do these things, there are things like the firing Daniel Pantaleo would not have resulted in any, he could have easily done that, I think. But
I'm telling you, I am telling you, I've seen the New York City charter. He could have done it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to graduate school and study politics, one of the things you have to read is the New York City charter.
Right.
Also, you have to read the New York City budget. I'm telling you, he could have done it. He didn't do it. Right. So that should tell you all you need to know right then and there.
Right. It's also stunning to me that these reforms that are coming in now from Cuomo, and I guess actually most of them I've heard from Cuomo in terms of reforms for the entire police throughout the state. It took this killing, of George Floyd, this police killing of George Floyd in Minnesota, for this to happen, because people actually went out there and destroyed some property. Whereas, we had Eric Garner right here at the hands of an NYPD officer. And I guess just because people didn't get, people who showed up didn't get to the point of causing physical damage to property, we didn't get those same reforms. Now, granted, these reforms are all, in my view, bullshit, because, a lot of these reforms are already practically the law here, and it doesn't really matter. Like, chokeholds in New York City by the NYPD were already banned when Eric Garner had the life choked out of him. But still, they were scared enough to at least, again, performatively do some reforms over that killing because some property got damaged. Whereas in Eric Garner's case, even though the man was a New Yorker, New York City resident, a constituent of Bill de Blasio, it wasn't enough to really set things in motion. It's gross to me, really.
Like I said, it's just placation. The reforms they've done are surface reforms. The fact that you have to pass an anti-chokehold bill is a summation of the problem. If you have to pass a bill saying it's illegal to choke somebody to death in your profession, then maybe we shouldn't look at that with the people. We should just start looking at the profession. If your profession has to be told not to choke people, they don't have to pass anti-chokehold bills in school.
Right.
They don't have to pass them in hospitals. They don't have to pass them in any other, in nursing practices. Why is it that your profession, we have to say that, you know what, you shouldn't choke people to death? Why is it that your profession, you have to wear a body camera on you? Which does nothing, by the way, because Eric Garner was killed on camera.
Right.
George Floyd was killed on camera. Tamir Rice was killed on camera. Philando Castile was killed on camera. What cameras don't do any damn thing.
Right.
We need to defund the police and take them out of the neighborhoods because people, well, the argument that I hear from those who don't agree with me is, well, black neighborhoods have more crime. Black neighborhoods have more crime because they have more police. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Police will find crime to justify their existence. That's why there's more crime. And then when your blackness is criminalized, then you're automatically a suspect. That's what stop and frisk was. Ta-da! That's how the system works.
All right, Isiah James, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to let you know, actually, maybe this shows that I'm a bad older brother, but I didn't realize that my sister is she lives in your district, and she found out that you were on the show, and she texted to let me know that she actually has already voted for you. So you're getting the votes, buddy. You're doing it.
Well, there we go. Listen, again, thank you for having me on. You know what I mean? My wife is sitting out here with me. This is our apartment. We're a tiny little apartment. You know what I mean? And my wife's a teacher, so this is her studio, her classroom. You know, if I show you this right here, she teaches, what grade do you teach? 3K pre-K. So these are all her little shapes for her classrooms and stuff like that. So by night, this is my congressional interview studio. By day, this is her virtual classroom. You know what I mean? And she's been sitting out here listening to me the whole time. I thank you for having me on, man. Like, listen, not before. It's so hard for grassroots campaigns to get any kind of exposure. You know what I mean? So the fact that you would have me on and reach out to me to be on the show, it means a lot. You know what I mean? So I want folks out there to know June 23rd, Tuesday, is election day. If you have your ballot, all you got to do is fill in for all the Bernie delegates. Check Isiah James. If you live in Senate District, I think 25, vote for Jabari, because I know Jabari, all those things. You know what I mean? Get that ballot in the mail, or if you choose to vote in person, vote for Isiah for Congress, Isiah James. Go to our website, IsiahForCongress.com. We're having a huge, massive phone bank tomorrow. So if you want to sign up to be brought on, we got like 200 people dialing 60,000 numbers tomorrow. So if you want to sign on, please join us. All the same social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Isiah for Congress. And I feel really weird asking people for donations, but if you got $5 or $10 to chip in, by all means. If you don't feel bad, because I'm broke too. But you can still follow me on social and amplify the message. So thanks for having me on, man.
Farah, who's running for state assembly, is she also in that area, that district, in terms of? I just want to make sure I get.
Vote for Farah as well.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I want to try to get. I've been trying so hard this week to reach out and try to get as many people running from the left to just, whether it's citywide office, state office, or congressional U.S. Congress. But you've been trying, and also tell your wife I appreciate what she does, because my son just graduated from pre-K, and I can tell you.
My wife's right here. Come in, don't fix your hair. She'll fix her hair. She always trying to fix her hair. You gotta fix your hair.
Listen,
pre-K.
Yeah, I just want to move. You're on split screen right now, so move the camera over a little bit more, because she's just at it. There we go. I just want to say, maybe second, third, fourth, maybe the older kids had a fun, easy time doing the Zoom schooling during this whole coronavirus thing, but from experience, pre-K, I'm guessing nursery and kindergarten too, that age range where the whole point of school is basically socialization with other kids their age. This has been impossible. So I can only imagine how it's been for teachers like you. So really, thank you so much for all you do. I mean, this has been an experience for me. So,
It's my lovely wife who I always talk about.
Yeah, it's my lovely husband.
All right. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thanks so much. And where can people find you again? I want that to be the last thing they hear, so they stop listening to the show and they go off and follow you and go to your website to chip in.
So, Isiah for Congress, ISIAH for Congress.com. You Google Isiah James Congress, just Google that, first, last name, Congress, everything will pop up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Isiah. Good luck, really. Take care.
Thank you. All right.
Have a good night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a really great interview. Isaiah James, I the brand new Congress slate this year is really fantastic. I mean, obviously they, a lot of these organizations that support grassroots left candidates always pick some great candidates, but I don't think there's ever been such a strong entire slate as there is this year in New York. It's just really well rounded. We have great candidates running throughout the city. I can only imagine. Really, there's been great candidates all over the country too, and I think that that really is what makes me hopeful for the left, because there's always been, people say the left, never gets the big wins. Well, if more people run, of course the left is going to lose. Insurgent campaigns run by grassroots fundraising, it's always going to be harder, so it's going to be harder for them to win. But when you have so many people running and so many great candidates at that, the odds of someone winning are greater, and the odds of that candidate being so good, it's just really heartening to see. Patreon.com/Matt Binder. You could support the show by subscribing and becoming a patron. We got a few patrons who helped us. We're still not back at the the goal, but we're hanging in there. Patreon.com/Matt Binder. Follow me on Twitter @Matt Binder. Follow me. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Matt Binder. Instagram Matt Binder. Search for anywhere Matt Binder and you'll find me. Doomedpod.com for the audio version of the show, the podcast, iTunes, Google Play, wherever podcasts are. Tell your favorite podcaster, YouTuber about the show. Tell them you want them on it. Tell them you want me on theirs. You know the drill at this point. There may be, now we're getting down to the wire. June 23rd, this Tuesday, is the New York primary. The last chance to get that vote in New York. So I'm gonna try to do one more, but no promises on this one because we're getting down to the wire. And tomorrow is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And then Monday is the day before, and people might be wanting to work down to the very wire and might not want to. I'm gonna see what I can do. So this might have been the last of the primary shows. Might not have. So stay tuned to the my social media channels, and you'll find out whether there's another primary related show. Without any further ado, though, the people who make this show possible by subscribing to the Patreon channel. Abigail T, Adam Q, Alan B, Andrew C, Andrew H, Angela, RER, Baka, Ben, Benji, Bobby M, Brian S, Brosnan, Champagne Kami, Chris F, Christine H, Cindy G, Colin R, Connor R, CT, Cul-de-sac, Cyber Snowstorm, D, Dan K, Dank Uger, Dave K, David Z, Daya, Douglas V, Dragon Slayer, Eugene B, Froz K, Free Hat, FTW, Graham C, Greywind, Greg D with 2 G's, Grim, Hitesh, Igor D, Jack D, Jacob W, Jamison Test, Janelle A, Jasmine H, Jeremy M, JLS, John B, John S, Jonathan B, Joseph H, Joseph R, Joyce M, Justin S, Katie S, Kaushal, Kyle, Lisa D, Mariah, Mark S, Maddie J, Max W, me, Melissa M, Mitch V, Michael B, Michael J, Michael M, Mr. Danks, NS, Nick, Nicole A, Namde Net, Null Style, Odeth, Paul M, Penelope D, Qster, Rad Dad, Remy, Ryan, Scott R, Seth K, Sean H, Sheena A, Silicone, Stephen R, Stephen S, Steve A, Tammy G, Hypervisor, This Is Not Pizza, Tina M, Tom M, Why That Tie Guy, Utopian, Zach M, and Zoe G. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Wonder how Trump's rally went in the end. Gonna go jump in and find out. Again, we are skipping the patron shows this week, the patron-only half of the shows this week, so I can do as many shows as possible with leftist and progressive candidates. We will be back on the regular schedule right after the primary shows with interviews and the patron half of the show and other cool stuff in the works, like the watch party shows we've been discussing and testing out with we did one with Jared, we did one with Leslie, Jared of Right Wing Watch and Leslie of Struggle Session. So a lot of good stuff coming up. Patreon.com/Matt Binder, YouTube.com/Matt Binder, DoomedPod.com. Folks, see you all next time on Doomed.